dog.
Will you see,
I have
Ben on Portmore?
I thought I wanted just to,
Right.
they both said they were going to do it, but nothing's happened. You might not.
Don?
We're recording, but we're not live streaming due to technical difficulties.
Okay, get started. Members happy for us to get started and then we'll
Yeah.
get the tech done as we go. Okay, thanks for coming. David Sill can't be here today, so I'll be taking over as chair as vice. So we do need a vice chair. Next thing, please, for the meeting. So if anybody's got a burning ambition, Councillor O'Leary, you indicated.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I stop a proposer? Councillor Dickinson, the second, Councillor Dickinson, then all those in favour? Join me up at the front of the tree.
Finally made the big leagues on.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, he's
He
not,
did vote for you.
he's not councillor O'Leary any longer. He's changed his mind, didn't he?
Yeah. Okay, so apologies for absences. I've not been notified of any absences. Correct.
Yeah, apologies for councillor Sybil, but he's substituted by councillor Northern.
Councillor Northern. Lovely. To approve those, to approve the substitution and those apologies, can I get a proposer? Councillor Harris, a seconder, Councillor Nicholson, and indication of agreement? Thank you. Take that as a success. Are those against? Those abstain? No, yeah. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Weller?
Grant application from Wayne's Museum, I'm a trustee.
So mine.
And Councillor Taylor?
I will just mention that I do a lot of work on domestic abuse and I do know people who run date, but it's not pecuniary interest.
Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Were there any items or notes from those minutes came up? No, could I have a proposal, please? Councillor Weller, seconder. Councillor Bell, and those in agreement? Is it? Who's in favour?
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those against?
7 in the end.
7. Those against or those abstaining? Yeah, fine. Yeah, sure. Thank you, members. Councillor questions? Not been notified of any? Nikki? No. And none put forward? No, thank you. Not been notified of any public questions either. So we'll move on to item 7, which is the grant applications. Are you dealing with this, Mr. Miller, as an introduction?
I will do, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
So these are the grant applications which have been received by the closing date for this tranche. Members will have those application forms prior to this meeting. The obvious thing to say is the funding which we have available is below the amount of the total of the grants applied for. So I'll leave that to you, Chair, to try and work your way through how best you would like to prioritise the grants.
Thank you, Ian. Now suggest to members there is can we take this as 2 items? So this was the CEE.
Yep.
The CEE group have approved and are in support of the 2 grants for them. So could I suggest we just accept those now as a separate item? Is that all right? And then we can just get into the meat and potatoes of the F and G. Councillor Weller.
Just ask a question. Did you just say CEE have approved their grant applications and done it? Because isn't that like marking your own homework?
Well, we've had 2 applications as the appropriate committee, but we've gone to the CE group for their endorsement of those applications.
And the
So we're-
CE applications.
Yes, we're sort of rubber stamping.
Can I just
Should be sure.
So members will recall that we set aside from the CE pot £10,000, which was specifically for grants of the CE nature. But the actual determination of those grants was still with this committee. It was felt that to ensure that those grants fulfilled the criteria of our CE policies and strategies and all those sorts of things, we've just asked the chair, vice chair of CE whether they did fit, and they've come back and confirmed it.
Okay, fine. Seems strange, but okay.
Is there any other comments on those CEE grants? Councillor Norman.
I'm trying to remember, the application by the Old Town Hall, Selwyn Williams, was similar in some respects to one of those applications, in that essentially they were looking to improve their energy efficiency. And I wondered whether we might, if we decide, to consider that under that, but I hadn't realised it required the CE group's consideration. But perhaps if it's unsuccessful at this process, it could be referred back to them. So he was basically wanting secondary glazing in the windows in the Old Town Hall because of the heating costs of running the place, and highlighted all the various community groups and events they hold there.
I would say that'd be an ideal
Yeah,
application for the CE group.
yeah, thank you.
Like Councillor Harris said, just for
Yes, no, that was the reason why it's come forward to this committee.
So might we, do we need to change it? Can I just take a proposal and a seconder for the CEE?
So we will just sort of, yeah, we do that.
Yeah, okay. Could I get, unless there's anybody else with comments on the CEE only grants? Oh,
So, sorry, I got myself round in a twist there, I apologise.
don't worry.
It's already in the CE pot.
Yes,
It was the dry dock that wanted to install some heat arrangement as well.
okay.
So
Yes,
that was the one I should have said.
okay, so you
Perhaps
meant
refer to that group.
the dry dock one for the CEE,
Yes.
which if,
If it's not
whether
approved.
successful or not, it would be advised that they would then apply.
Thank you, sorry I got that wrong.
Councillor.
May I ask, are we taking these both as one, or we can, is there ability to vote on these two separately? I personally, because I have a reservation about one of them, would like to take them separately personally, but
I don't mind taking them separately if the members, if any other members feel strongly about that. Which is the one you'd like to speak on?
no, I don't want to speak. I do have some reservations about the £700 towards the climate hub. Due to I'm not convinced that this council's funding towards that. If some of the action to climate hub is appropriate use of ratepayers' money, but that's my own personal feeling.
Okay. I'm happy to take them separately.
Yeah.
For members. Okay, so let's do the Guardians of the Old Town Hall grant. Could I get a proposal for that, please? Councillor Harris and seconded by Councillor Weller. Could I have a show of hands, please, and support for that?
So that is unanimous, chair.
Lovely. And then we will now look for a proposal on the climate resources and guidance operating as Weymouth Climate Hub. Could I have a proposal for that? Councillor Harris. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Could I have a show of hands? Support that.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah,
Those against?
that is 4.
And any abstentions?
So that is carried.
So we'll move back to the business of the community grant applications for discussion. Quite a few applications before you, members. I wonder if we might, because this will take up probably most of the discussion this evening, whether there are any indications or thoughts from members about particular grants that you feel might not be suitable, either against our policy or within the spirit of the town council. Councillor Dickinson.
I'm sorry, perhaps because I've only been here, but I'd like to know what the heck Dry Dock Pub CC is, and I'd also like to know what Bags of Dreams and Nightmares are. I'd like to sort of have an explanation of them both before I vote on whether we give them money or not.
It's in the papers, isn't it, Chair? I've spent 2 hours reading them today.
All of the grant applications we were sent 2 weeks ago with all of their. I'm not gonna say allegedly completed applications, because some of them I felt weren't fully completed.
I remember reading through, but I do not remember reading about the Bank of Dreams and Nightmares.
I think that was the first one sent through. It's offhand, I think it's, no, I'm not going to speak on it because I don't know it well enough. But, is there anybody in the public from that organisation? Nope. Okay.
They weren't asked to attend.
They weren't asked to attend, and I will remind members for any questions, bigger picture things that you'd like to find out, you can always call in these organisations for questions, thoughts, etc., or discussion on their projects. But we do have a large amount of them, and I will remind members we've got just over 15,000 to spend, but we have quite a bit more being applied for. Councillor Weller.
If looking overall, because we do have an awful lot of applications here and we have a limited amount of money. That some of the participative arts projects seem to me to be very cross-referenced, and I'm just wondering whether there couldn't be some greater collaboration on that. So that, you know, when we have our community engagement events, our community engagement officer could encourage these people could be encouraged to come to our community engagement and then say, well, you know what you're planning to do here for 14-year-olds is very like what you're planning to do here with 10-year-olds, and perhaps that this is just sort of hypothetical thing, but 30 people in the ocean room, 14-year-olds in the ocean room in this corner costing £1,000, you could have 30 10-year-olds in that corner sharing the £1,000. And then it's a much better use of our grant money, because I'm not convinced that some of these applications are targeting sufficient numbers of our residents to really justify the money that we're giving to them. Now, we're not really in a position to answer that at the moment, but I do have a considerable disquiet, because I want us to be able to support all of these community events, but I'd like it to be money, better value for money. On the specifics, the first one coming up, Melway, and I think that this is something, Councillor Furman, that you might be able to give a little bit more information on yourself. But I'm not sure what they're achieving, because doesn't everybody put their gigs and everything else on Facebook and on what's on and all that stuff? So what's this extra layer giving for that amount of grant? I'm sorry if I sound very uncultured here, but I don't understand.
No, that's fine, Councillor, and actually for that very reason is why I called in Melway, and we'll be talking to a member of the public about that.
Terrific, thank
in a
you.
moment for that, because I thought that might come up.
Thank you.
Councillor Norton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On processor, if we were able to, I looked at some of these, and as a newbie, I'm not sure of the eligibility, so I'd like some advice on that, and I'll give some instances. If we were able to rule some out as they're ineligible, then it makes deciding who gets what a little bit easier. Because if they don't meet the criteria, then it takes it down from an ask of 36k to a smaller number. And I have a couple of questions. One's around, in the policy, it says that grant is principally for capital support, which means buying stuff in my book, not revenue, e.g. paying people for their time or wages in some instances. And looking through these applications, many of the applications, it's clear that they are paying people for their time. And some of them, I suspect that might be what they're doing, but it's not explicit. So WOEC, for example, identifies an instructor and an assistant, which they're going to pay £7,400 for. And that's apart from the fact that WOEC is run by Dorset Council. So why are we funding a Dorset Council project? So I might suggest that, and I wait for your ruling, but I might suggest that WOEC is ineligible on 2 counts. We look at the Home Start, it explicitly says £1,825 to cover staff costs and £425 for volunteer costs. So again, it's a direct labour element out of the total. As one says, some costs are for production of vignettes, production of recorded stories, but it doesn't say, and that's 4,700, but it doesn't say what costs, and are these to pay someone for their time? It isn't explicit, so I'm not sure what production means. We can clarify that. And then DAIT includes costs for facilitators, can't say that word, at £3,500. So that's my first question really to you. Are those eligible because they are paying for staff or paying for people's time? Could I have some clarity, please?
So, if I make sure.
Yeah, go ahead. I've got some input, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I suppose the first thing to say is the differentiation between those two things which were referring to, Councillor Norton, was whether they were ongoing running costs or one-off costs. Now, capital costs mean something different to people in terms of that probably means something like building works or by purchase of equipment. So in simple terms, what we've traditionally done is not funded ongoing running costs, which are costs which are going to be incurred year to year for the same thing. But if there's a specific project which is a one-off project, then funding has been made available to enable that one-off event to take place. And inevitably, initially, that probably has included some facilitators and staff costs. But members, it's up to their, to them to determine whether that's one of the things that they want to consider when these like.
Yeah, I would add to that.
Yeah.
To the deputy town clerk. For example, if we had a football team that wanted to target a particular demographic, and their project was to have a 10-week running session, I can see where we would want to perhaps help fund that as an individual project. However, if they were a club that had ongoing costs, then it would not be. And I think it's within our gift to be able to just be a little bit more nuanced about those projects coming forward. And in some respect, and I use a website and tech as an example, as you said, in terms of hiring and paying people for a service, that we may have a community organisation that wants to have a website and they're able to fund the running costs, but the startup cost of it to develop that tech may come in the form of an application. So there is some grey area to this, but we have it within our gift to be able to look at something quite, well, I don't want to say objectively because we don't, but we can look at things and say, well, actually, we can see that that's a kind of launch pad into a service that they can provide, and we can help them with that. But you're right, we must be mindful that we aren't just paying wages, because if I started a community club and I just happen to be the coach as well and run it, I could, oh, well, we need X amount of money, and that just happens to go to me because I'm the coach and I'm paying for goods and services on that. And that's not what we want to do. We want to support and fund voluntary groups as our chief operating, our main operating system. I think that's the spirit of our policy, is to look at the strength of our voluntary sector and be able to support it more and more, because when people are helping themselves, it kind of inspires us to want to help, I think, is within our gift of that public money. On that note then, Councillor Northern, you've mentioned the WOEC one. I've also looked through this, and members, if you feel strongly or want to add to this, please do. I looked at the WOEC one. I didn't think it was appropriate because it was a DC organisation. it felt counter to the policy. And in respect of swimming, that is something that is taught as a core curriculum in all of our primary schools, or should be taught in all our, certainly is it mine. So that for me was something that I didn't think was wise money. I'm not sure if we can go through these informally and knock them out and kind of whittle it down. I can see Councillor Taylor, the cogs are going, but you jump in if you've got some thoughts on
Yeah,
it.
if I can just come back and go back.
Yeah.
Back a little way, because we've got into the nitty gritty of this. But I just want to go back on the principles, and I just want to be sure that we're not leaving ourselves open, that if people applied early on in the year and they've got all of the grants, and these are applying late in the year, they're unlikely to get all the grants. Are we okay for a challenge on that? Because if I was one of these organisations and I was getting cut out now simply because we haven't got the funding, I would be majorly grumpy if all the ones at the beginning of the year went through. So that's one question. The other question is a fundamental one. Is there any more money anywhere that we can move across into this, or what we want to do? And what would be the process on that? And the third question was, have we got facilities to give them a percentage based on how much they're asking for, so that all of our money is spent, but they don't all get what they're asking for?
So we would start with one around whether we would be challenged. There's nothing to say that we would be challenged. It's up to us as an organisation how and when we give grants. There's nothing legally which would say that we've got to do X, Y, and Z. Going forwards, I think this year's been a bit of a mixture of the old system and the new system. So going forwards, it'll be quite explicit that there'll be 3 tranches, each tranche about 25,000, and that'll be quite explicit. So that traditionally, you're quite right. We've fallen, not found, so all praise, but those organisations, large organisations who are very good at going out and getting funding, they will always get their applications in the first quarter and almost guaranteed to get their funding because they know how to play the game. Hopefully we'll remove that going forward. So we couldn't be challenged because it's not legally to say that you could, shouldn't do, but that's now to our gift. The bit on applying percentage, and again, apologies, Chair, but this is from experience, it's a bit of a strange one really, because where I've been involved in community clubs and applied for grants, or we've got a percentage back, I think the thought process is, are you better off actually funding for schemes which can actually go through and become to fruition, rather than funding 12 but only part funding, so actually they haven't got enough funding to be able to deliver what they were trying to do in the first place. That makes sense. So that's sort of a bit of a dilemma which members may want to keep in the back of their mind. So if you give a percentage of that, then it may not allow. Was there a clear point, Councillor?
Is there any more money? Sorry, I should have asked you that one earlier, shouldn't I? I do apologise.
The answer is not specifically. We're projecting an underspend, but I think that's down to full council to allocate where that underspend goes. So the best I would suggest and recommend you could do is, if there's any which you want funding for, is to recommend to full council that some of the underspend, some of these are delayed, some of the underspend goes towards them, and then they can fund them when full council have actually approved that additional funding.
Okay, so we could also roll some of these over to the following year.
Potentially.
Okay.
We do encourage that as well. Any applicants that are not successful, by all means, apply in the next tranche.
Yeah.
Councillor Ward.
There were also a number, sorry, this is on the principle again, or can we rule any out for eligibility?
Yes,
There were a number of bids.
In light of moving along, I think let's start to now look at what we've got in front of us, because that's all we're being asked on this evening, is to look at these applications and to make a decision on them. I think the policy, the wording, the spirit, the principle, we are going to talk about some of the wording in the policy, I think in item 8, at some point, so we can touch on that again, but it is very much, I want to assure members that is in my mind and officers' mind as we go forward, because we want to get this right, not just do it once. Yeah, councillor Norman. Are you okay with that?
I don't understand how, what order we're going to take things in and how we know when we've spent the money.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to go through the applications. If nobody would like to speak strongly for that application, we'll take it as a sort of first round, and those that get through the round and are within our gift to fund, we will then just fund. Any outstanding funds not from the first round, we can look at the other applications if we wish to. If we have an overspend in round one, then we'll just take those that are kind of that allocation, and then we can argue it out of how we want to spend the money. Councillor Bell.
I think we fairly conclusively decided to take Warwick out.
Yeah.
So if we're looking to narrow this down.
Yeah.
I don't think I have to do this as a formal anything.
No, you're
We're
right.
just narrowing it down, aren't we?
Yes.
For me, Warwick goes,
Okay.
for all the reasons already outlined, I'm not gonna go over it again.
Okay. So sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is just to go through them, and then we'll knock them off.
Okay.
Warwick. Does anybody feel strongly about putting that in? Okay, Warwick is off for now. Bank of Dreams. I've made some notes about the application, so I'll just share my notes maybe as a starter for conversation. But on the Bank of Dreams, it indicated no volunteers. There wasn't a charity number included. None of the schools mentioned within the application are in Weymouth. It didn't come with councillor support, and they haven't secured any other funding. So it was a strike off for me in that respect. But if there's other opinions there, please let it be known now. Councillor Norman.
So Budmouth to me is a Weymouth school, and it serves Weymouth people. It may not be in Weymouth, and it was one of the 3 schools that was mentioned. So and they were quite regional schools. I thought that and the 3K they were asking was effectively, I think, for the hire of the pavilion, the ocean room in the pavilion. It was part of a much bigger bid with other money supposedly coming from other places, including a national lottery award. Yeah, I'm happy for that to drop.
Is there anybody, councillor Harris?
I'm happy for it to be dropped. What I was going to ask though is forgotten now. Hey, David, threw me my thing, so I'll come back.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, I know, right, sorry.
Neil.
Go on.
Want to go while you remember?
I think I'd be better off going for a vote on it. The Bank of Dreams and Nightmares, I'll propose that it's dropped.
Agreed.
But do I have a seconder? Councillor Harris.
Hold on. Whoa. Okay, I'm the chair. I'll be asking for proposals and seconders. Yeah, it's not planning. What I'd rather do is we're just gonna do it formally. I don't think it needs to have on the record of who's voting for what in respect of all these applications. I think it's better that we get a consensus from members to be able to move forward and do it that way.
Are we producing a short list or a long list or something?
We're going to go through every single application now. We're going to ask if anybody feels strongly about that application. If there are, then we could argue out. If nobody feels strongly about it and they're happy for it to be dropped, then it just gets dropped. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, Chairman, we've got a couple members of the public here, and I don't know what organisations, sorry to be rude, but any of them are from, and I think I'd like to hear from them.
Would you like to hear from them first?
I'd like to hear from them first, because I don't want to take out a group, because they may persuade me.
Yeah,
I can, you know.
Yeah, okay. Are all of these members of the public, have they all been called in? I know that Melway's been called in, but I just wanted to check that they've officially been called in.
Melway were the only ones.
I've come to speak for the Punch and Judy man, Mark Poulton, but I can see
but it's the last thing on the,
It is.
and it says that
And it-
members of the
yeah.
public are gonna be thrown out.
Yeah,
Because John Orwell told me that I, could come, I thought he was gonna be here.
no, you've been misinformed, because yes, it is a confidential item, therefore members of the public and the camera will be turned off because it's a members only.
So I won't be
session.
able to speak for him.
You won't, I apologise, no, you've been misinformed.
Well, could
What I would,
sorry, can I just say that I did hand a petition in, and as long as the letter that he wrote to Jane is read out, I'm not sure which Jane, is she the?
2 seconds, man, just let me confer with officers first. Right, so I think what we'll do is, if on this particular, I know we're out of order, members, what I'd like to do is, you cannot speak for Mark and the Punch and Judy, but you obviously have something to say, and I don't want you to feel that you've come all this way and been misinformed by our diligent mayor. But what I will do is, when we finish this item, I would then, am I able to mix up some standing orders so we can hear the lady speak on that item, and then she can go?
You'll have a gap between that dialogue and the next item, Chair.
Yes, if that's all right, between items 7 and 8, if that's all right.
It's up to you, Chair. Normally you would
Yes.
say before the item goes into the confidential session, but if you want to take it over, that's the.
Well, I don't want the lady to stay for the end of the evening. I'd
Yeah,
rather you be able to, if you've got something to
Being
say.
thrown out before you even talk.
Yeah, throwing out death.
Not really on, I came on by.
Yeah, okay, so if that's all right, I won't make you stay all night, but we'll hear you after we've discussed the grants, and then we can take that information. Thank you. Yeah, no worries. I beg your pardon,
Yeah,
are you part of the grant applications as well?
yes, because it actually says you don't have to come. And I thought it was deferential to come. And if you want to ask questions, you may.
Wonderful, then we will, if that's all right. Yeah.
Can you tell us
so-
which organisation you're representing then, please?
As one theatre company.
As one theatre, yes, I knew that. Right, okay, so members, we're getting there, so we've Bank of Dreams has been sidelined, as has the Worlac, and let's go to councillor Harris.
The question I was going to ask was, how, you mentioned there was quite a few arts groups here. I would hope they might be able to get together a little bit more when they're actually putting together some of these bits. As we're in the year of culture and art, how many are actually also applying to that organisation in order to, and maybe duplicating their requests? It's whether, and therefore we know that there's an alternative
Yes.
if we don't want to.
That was brought up at the Town of Culture's meeting on Monday, because we've received 68 applications for the Town of Culture Launchpad grants. There's no way we can fund all of those.
No.
So there is discussion around that. I'm not sure, looking at that, it wasn't myself that mentioned the arts, I think it was councillor Weller. There aren't that many that cross over within this, but I think I'm getting a sense from councillor, you were talking more generally about groups being connected.
Working collaboratively.
Yeah, and that is actually something that myself and the Deputy Town Clerk talked about in terms of a portfolio of contacts that can be linked up as part of our community development. So that's on radar as well, and I appreciate that. All right, let's go. As one, would you like to come on down and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, if we both come, if that's.
Yeah, come on down.
One of us has the vision and produces, and the other one does the budget, so.
Okay, so I think, would you, if you wouldn't mind, would you give us a kind of brief overview of what your project is and what you want to achieve, and then if members wish to answer questions, we can go from there.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, of course. Some of you may know that we've done a very big project with the Ukrainian community. So I just want to say that because I think what we do is known now. I hope you got the book the documentary, you know, we do what we say we do. Now, the application is for something we call VE Day Voices. As you know, I'm going to start with this, the no thought, until they get their damp sorted, they can't apply for any large funding for events. And we have now become, we're trying to support that. So this project is actually for a show, as well as a legacy of recordings that they will have for the future. In 2005, the company toured some 30 theatres with many memories that were written to us. They were still writing in those days. Most of them are dead now, unfortunately. But we have wonderful memories from a lot of people that tell the story mainly of the women's work during the war. So it's the voices mainly of women and what they did during the war. We do have VE Day memories as well. We will be advertising more for some more memories, and going on the radio and doing the usual things to try and get some more memories. But of course, mainly they'll be from their children and grandchildren now, hopefully, if they've told them. And that's one of the reasons why I collect them, because many don't get told or asked for. So this is a show at the No Thought, the weekend before VE Day. And we also said that we would offer a contribution from that performance during the on the beach as well, as part of the beach concert. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word concert. So yes, it is mainly about people, but we don't have a building. We are a theatre company of 20 years achievement, really, and we have toured widely, all new theatre, all new work. I am going to include the Ukrainian children. We're still doing work with Ukrainian children. I go every Friday. At the moment, this term, we're doing art therapy, but they're singing too, and I will bring them as part of this, because I truly believe that to celebrate peace in Europe without them being part of it would be not something, it wouldn't sit well with me. I feel we need to actually say, look, and so I will be working, I'm still working with them. So really, it is putting together a piece. I'm going to use children in the younger roles, which actors did originally. So the refuge, I'm going to tell the story of the war briefly and then end with VE Day stories. I shall use children in the younger memories, so the refugee memory, actually Poppy, who is Kevin's mother, but she is a go-to person now. She's 96. She's one of the few left that can actually stand up and tell her stories. She will be part of it, but a younger person will play her as when war was announced. So it is a show.
Lovely.
And we're not asking, I heard somebody say it should be for capital money, but we don't have that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with some questions, if that's all right. So just looking at the costs here, it says production, performance, vignettes at No Thought, beach concert, totals around 5,950. Could you confirm to me, are any of those funds being allocated to professional performers or production assistants, managers?
Yes.
Okay. Are any of those people that are being paid part of the As One group already? What I'm trying to establish
No, we
is-
work project to project.
Okay, what I'm trying to establish is that if it's
No,
working
we-
on a voluntary basis, or if this is going towards funding a professional production that is paid as professional, you know.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. You talked about project. You know, we are a project-based company. We can't do anything unless we raise funds and do a project. So we don't have a home as such. And so, yes, I mean, this is going to be professionally produced. Because that does end up with something special.
I think to address the issue, yes,
Yeah.
it'd be a combination. Obviously, we have a professional director because you want that professional standard. And if we need a professional actor to come in, we can use child actors, established actors within our community. And then there will be lots of volunteers who come in, like children, groups, choirs. So we draw people from those to add. to
Yes,
it.
I mean, to
get
liaise
professional
that
standards, you need
takes a
professional
little, yeah,
people.
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and to make it a good experience for those young people or the Ukrainian people, or, you know, it's good to have professionals actually in charge.
And just on a side note to that is, are those, because I want to differentiate between those that are not part of the As One theatre group. Anybody in the As One theatre group being paid?
Yes, I will get some money because I'm the director,
Okay.
but you have to understand. I do not have funding, I don't have a salary. Even a wage. I just get paid for a project
That's fine. Members, any questions?
for the town.
Councillor Beth.
That's my job.
You covered some of the points I was picking up from the form. I think it sounds really good, and in terms of fitting in with the town's culture celebrations. I teach a lot of Ukrainian students and thought of anything that brings them further into our community and shows our support is more essential this week than it was last week, and will continue to get more important.
Absolutely.
So,
I told them, yeah.
Very satisfied with the overall aims of it. Like Councillor Furman was working towards there. I'm still a little unclear on how the money will be distributed within the project.
Right, well, some of it's going towards recording the voices, and you have to have a professional to do that.
Okay.
Otherwise you know, you do have problems sometimes. I have anyway, when I've employed somebody as a volunteer, it doesn't go to plan always.
With the permanent installation at the Node 4,
Yes,
is that handed to Node 4 in
Yes.
perpetuity, or is that something that will
yes,
they
they
have to
have
pay
it.
you for?
No, they have it. It's, yes, it's very good value.
They are contributing towards the project.
They are, yes.
I mean, I would say that we applied to Arts Council England for a much larger scale production because we thought it was so important. Yeah. For the town, for the time, you know, it's a pivotal point in world history, essentially. Peace in Europe, we're celebrating, we like to think that will continue. So it's one and only opportunity to get these final memories of people who are going to be no longer with us in another 5 years. Yeah. But we were unsuccessful in getting the grant, which was going to be a much larger scale production. So
Yeah.
really, we're looking at really putting on the best we can for the budget.
We've had to scale it back.
Get it back.
Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned funding from Node 4.
Yes, they're
Is
going to
that-
be helping us a little bit.
Is that shown on the? Yes, it is.
Yes,
May I come in then? Is that under business sponsorship?
Yes.
yes.
Right, that's
So
fine. That's as expected.
Yeah,
Confirmed.
we couldn't now confirm.
No,
Is
it's
that
confirmed.
now confirmed?
Yes,
And
it's
the
confirmed.
£150 souvenir merchandise.
Yeah, in fact, it's not 500, it's 400, isn't it? Or 50?
Yeah, we've got the other.
Oh, yes, we have.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's all confirmed.
500.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got 500.
Marvellous.
Any other questions, members? Councillor Northam.
It seems to tie in with the city of towns of cultures, kind of elevated it a bit. The towns of cultures, have you made an application to them for this project, or have you got other?
No,
projects?
it's another project. Another project.
The small grant, the 1300 one. you're talking about, it's going forward for the.
Yeah, 1250,
Launchpad.
isn't it? So is it 1250
Yeah,
or something?
the launchpad grants.
They're quite small grants,
They
yeah.
are. There are more grants
know.
becoming available, but.
Yeah, I think I was told to hold fire, but
Councillor O'Leary.
something a bit bigger.
Yes, I'm very much in favour of this because of the media aspect of it. I must admit, when it comes to culture and theatre and art, I'm a bit Philistine. And especially when it's taxpayer money of this amount of money, I'm normally a bit reluctant. But as this is for VE Day, and I think it leaves a permanent legacy for the Note 4, I personally am in favour of probably this.
Yeah, and it really is about peace in Europe this year, isn't it, you know?
Councillor Weller.
I'm aware of the productions of, as I'm sure you are, Jill. They're very professional, they're very insightful, very thought-provoking. The sort of thing that we should always be supporting, I feel, because it is very relevant to our town.
Okay, I think we've got good indication from members that this perhaps should
Yeah.
pass the first round.
Thank you.
We'll continue our discussion and we may come back to you.
Yeah,
Stevie, at some point, so please take
Yeah.
a seat and we'll just
Yeah,
we'll work through the others, but we've got a good
Yeah.
indication and
Yeah.
thank you for the information.
it will be joyous as well, you know.
I'll note that down.
Thank you, thank you. That makes me.
Okay, Melrek, Claudia, would you like to come up and? Sorry, I'm not sure. Yeah, not your chamber.
Thank you for.
Members, yeah, you're welcome. If you would just give us an overview of the project, please, just introduce yourself, and then members, feel free to ask questions.
Hi, I'm Claudia Webb and I'm representing Melway Organising Committee, which is volunteer organisation attached to Civics Gallery work. Some time ago, I think they came up with this idea to form a digital events platform to follow on from the Towns of Culture as a sort of legacy project. And just heard today as well that Towns of Culture would be happy for us to take their website on after this year has passed, in order to do all the things that we need to do to make it this digital events platform. So I just wanted to address a couple of points that were mentioned earlier. So I just made some notes on my phone while we were talking. As Councillor Weller pointed out, people already find events on social media, etc. True, in some respects, social media is powerful, but it's also fragmented. And events can often get buried in like algorithms or missed entirely by residents. I've missed plenty of things that I would have liked to attend. Unless you're following the right pages, you don't necessarily see them. So this platform would be a centralized, community-wide calendar where every event is equally visible and searchable by category and date. And it will complement social media by sort of aggregating the content into one trusted and accessible space. And it also fits in really nicely to something else that Councillor Weller suggested, which is, things like arts groups joining forces to apply together for grants. Because that's exactly what this platform is designed to support, provides a shared digital infrastructure, which is ideal for collaboration. And so rather than each group building their own websites or communication tools, especially if they're not very skilled in social media, etc. So they can use this platform to promote their events, coordinate their calendars, and then gather data, because we'll have an awful lot of data, which will be data of integrity, which will support future joint funding bids. So it strengthens our collective capacity really as a sector. I'm open to questions.
Councillor Bell. Oh, no, forgive me. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. You mentioned, obviously you're here from Melway, you mentioned a connection to St Nick's Gallery. Is that the same St Nick's CIC that's applying for £1,768.97?
Yes.
I must say I do have just a slight concern that obviously has a similar two linked organisations that were applying for almost £5,000 separately. I don't, and probably with officers for this. is that, well, I know it's okay in regards to the policy, but do we have any concerns about the fact that obviously we got two organisations that are linked, applying separately, can they have applied for one large grant, et cetera, or?
No, I mean, one's a CIC and one's a volunteer organisation, so.
What's the connection between the two then?
I just happen to do both.
What I mean, sorry, what I see, the only connection is yourself, St. Nick's, CIC and Melway aren't connected to each other.
No, no,
Apart from the fact that's fine,
Yeah.
that clears that up, sorry.
but yeah, there's no, you know, money
I just
sharing,
don't-
etc.
No, that's fine, I didn't spot that.
Councillor Bell.
Wasn't really a question, it's more just to lend my support.
Oh.
Thank you to councillor Webb for coming in and introducing this. Really eloquently put, love the points around legacy. And the fact that this isn't like a one-off and it passes on similar to the conversations we were just having about AS1, where they're creating something beyond this moment in time. You're doing that as well, supporting the sector. I just want to lend this my support and I feel very strongly it should go into the next round of Leave You Fraser.
Councillor Norman.
I have a concern which is similar to what was initially mentioned by councillor Weller, which is replicating We Are Weymouth, which has its events, replicating Love Weymouth, which is a little bit more off the wall, but hey, what's on in Weymouth, and there's also Resort Dorset dash Weymouth. So there's, when you type in what's on in Weymouth, you get this plethora of sites that tell you what's on, and none of them tell you everything,
No,
which is really disappointing. And I don't know which ones charge, but I don't know, I guess one or two might. And I noticed this was free. But what I'm worried is that it's yet another place to go to try and find stuff. And what I'd really like is for it all to come together in some way.
exactly.
That's what I'd really like. So that's why I'm hesitant about supporting something else, which is yet another. And in your description, I didn't see those other things that you mentioned, beyond what I would call advertising events. That's what I thought that was doing, advertising events, and I think it's a duplication, so I'm a bit reluctant to support this one.
Could I?
Yeah, come back.
to Councillor, I worked for the OM before,
You
so
did.
I'm aware of its value. So it is a valuable resource, particularly for tourism. However, it's primarily focused on attracting visitors to the town and supporting the bid levy payers. This would be it's more of a community driven thing, so it'd be supporting the grassroots, local organisers, creatives, you know, much smaller things than perhaps the bid We Are Weymouth would be able to promote. So it's designed specifically to fill that gap. It's not commercially oriented, it's community first. Basically, it's for all the things that fall off the list when it comes to these bigger websites like Visit Dorset and We Are Weymouth, etc. You know, a lot of people don't get a chance to even promote their information on there. So it's designed around their own needs and the creativity that's in Weymouth that isn't getting represented at the moment.
Councillor Weller.
Thank you, Claudia, for the greater information, because I find that really helpful. And the idea that it might facilitate that collaboration between different things and get things together, because of course, you are true, there are an awful lot of things, but depending upon what you go on into, bits fall through the gaps all the time. So one umbrella website, however it works, giving you lots of stuff. I said most importantly to me is the idea of that collaboration. Because at the moment, people work in silos, and that's exactly what the Towns of Culture is supposed to rule out to a certain extent to get this greater collaborative working. If that helps with that, then I'm very happy.
Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I want to speak up in support of what Councillor Norton said in regards to We Are Weymouth, Love Weymouth, etc. It's probably quite strange to say these days, but websites, I believe, are actually quite old fashioned. If you're wanting to find out information, if you to find a website after buying, you have to type something in the tick to the website. So if I want to type into Google what's on in Weymouth, it will come up with We Are Weymouth, it will come up with various other websites. What I find is the people that don't go to events are people that are unaware of them. But aren't gonna become aware of them via a website, they'll become aware of them via probably social media, which is, I've always found being involved in a number of community groups and a bit more, which might surprise some people. That's a very good way of getting people to those events. And the old fashioned sticking something through somebody's door. I actually think what we should be trying to do is more direct. In terms of trying to get people to events, is more a direct approach of it, which is sticking things through letterboxes, etc. Trying to get people that way, is I think websites are very much, somebody has to go out and seek that in order to find it. So I don't think I would be in support of this one moving forward personally. For that reason, that's just my opinion.
I will say, members, that I put my name to this application. I met with the Melway team before this to kind of case out what it's about. If I could sum it up as a parent myself, there was a pottery event going on that my children would have loved, and I think in respect of what Claudia is saying on those small community events that fall through the net, I would have loved to find out about that. I don't know, I didn't know, and there was no site aggregating those particular types of event that I could find out from. It went on word of mouth, or if I happened to see the post on Facebook. I understand the reservations about websites. For me, as a tech user, websites are actually better to use than apps, because the way you can, I don't know what the word is because I'm not good enough at it, but you can access all the information like an app on your phone to those things. So they would have their website, I would have it on my home screen. I could look on there on a particular weekend, school holiday, and see a list of events, correct me if I'm wrong, Claudia, that I could filter through for my family to go to. That's where the real use is, I think, is that people can access the information in a one-click facet instead of as you've described. Now, yeah, I do take the point of my learned friends on another place it's going to be to check, but at some point we've got to stop going to everywhere and kind of, perhaps as a town council, perhaps as a community, focus in on one source of information and ensure that is up to date. But Lord, did you want to come?
I just wanted to respond to Councillor O'Leary, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I completely get your point about going out to people directly. I mean, obviously, elections, etc. Sometimes it's the only way to get people. But the smaller organisations or community groups just don't have the capacity or the money for that. And just to print these things would cost an awful lot. And it's beyond most people's reach, I'm afraid.
There's mixed responses to that. So
I'm comfortable.
yeah, so we'll pass that to the next round, or do you want to
think on this one? There seems to be a mix in the.
yeah, do you want to take an informed vote on it? Okay,
Well, I'm opposed.
okay, so we'll just take it as who is in support of this going forward? 5. Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Okay, thank you, Claudia. If you'd like to take a seat, and I apologise, we're going to go through the other applications. It might be set out a little as well. But hopefully these ones will go a bit quicker because we don't have the rest of the time people here. I'm just going to pluck them out the air because I think from my notes there was some conflicting what's the right word for it? Just their aspirations conflicted with the policy. I think, for example, dry dock, half of it was to go to a pay it forward. Now, if members aren't don't know about that, pay it forward is where people can come in and basically have a free drink or a coffee, tea. That is a separate scheme that is run across the town, and for its own, we're not funding facilities to be a part of that scheme. For me, that didn't seem it didn't seem that, and it seems that that's actually a running cost because that inadvertently goes back into the till. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, Councillor Dickinson said about what is the dry dock earlier, it's basically a pub that doesn't sell alcohol, I've never been there, obviously. Obviously, but you know, it's a very busy thing, but one thing I will say is I didn't actually realise till this come forward, it was a charity, I thought it was a private enterprise.
Yeah,
So I think there needs to be some work done on their part to explain that they are a charity, and perhaps they would get, although they seem very well supported, every time we walk by from one pub to another, it's very busy. So I give them their dues on that. But I think, bearing in mind the fact that it is a pub, that's not this pub, I thought it was a private business. That then led me to believe that I assumed everybody that worked there, or most people that worked there were paid. And therefore, once again, it comes back to, are we subsidising wages, etc. I didn't find it very clear in the papers from what I saw, I may have missed something. So I'm a bit ambiguous. I also believe that we should be here to fund people with tea or coffee or soft drink personally. What we're here to do in this case.
I will confirm, Councillor O'Leary, I think just to answer your question, on the application it said that it was not a voluntary organisation without any paid members was no. So it's a little bit grey there. I think probably we could do some work on the.
The other thing is, I mean, they could have 3 paid members of staff.
Yes.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Councillor Weller. Councillor Weller.
I opened this premises when I was mayor, actually. And we were approached, I think you were in, no, you weren't involved. A number of us were involved in helping them early on with finding premises because they wanted the idea of, particularly those younger people, but people who have maybe a problem with alcohol, but still want to socialise. Having somewhere that they could feel as though they were socialising, play a game, darts or pool or whatever, but not tempted to have an alcoholic drink along with it. And on that premise, it's worked very well, and it does seem to be well supported. I was very uncomfortable with the idea of the pay it forward because that's, you know, customers do that. They buy themselves a cup of coffee and they put a cup of coffee behind, just as you do in the fish and chips. So that I wasn't too happy about. The idea of increased heating and so on, I think to suggest to them that they go to CEE would be a good idea. They do pay staff as far as I know. So if they want to come back to us with more information, that would be a good idea. But not to make a decision on it at this time because there's not sufficient information.
Councillor Morley.
I didn't open this place, but I have been in it and I enjoyed my time in it. And they do serve non-alcoholic beer, if you follow my phrasing. And it's quite a nice sociable place and it is attracting a mixed group of people. It's different to going to the church and, you know, having your free cup of coffee in the church. And I agree that the pay it forward scheme is something that we can't fund. If you knock that out, it drops the value by to a half, 2,500. The other items, I'll just list them, aren't anything, are radiators, baby changing unit, installation of heating and baby unit, advertising and promotion.
We've all had the papers.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is I'd like to suggest it does go forward, but at half value.
I will just note that we cannot part fund. We can only look at the application wholly and fund that.
They can come back.
They can come back
Okay,
with
well,
a
go back to my original.
rejigged
Yeah, okay.
application, but yeah, sorry, you perhaps wouldn't have been subject to that before, Councillor Northam, as you're a sub on here, but yeah, we can only fund complete applications. We can't pull out what we like, but I noted the same, that the top 3 things that they had in there would have been really good at £1,300. However, we're not in that position. So yeah, so if we could note to go back to them and just give them that advice, please.
Is that a general consensus?
And a general consensus on that this won't go through to the next round.
Yeah.
Friends of Radipole? I bet councillor Bell is gonna be chomping at the bit for this.
I have frequented Radical Park occasionally.
Bingo.
Yeah, so, yeah, I obviously fully support this. They've worked closely with the council, they've put in a lot of time and effort, they've outlined very clearly what the funds are for. I think what they've suggested represents pretty good value in terms of the number of events they want to put on. So 8 workshops over 4 sessions. Again, yeah, all outlined on number 5 of the report. Yeah, gets my full support, and I think it links in well with, you know, huge demographic, getting them into our parks, which we should be doing as a council, and supporting that. So yeah, fully behind.
Councillor O'Leary.
I don't have an objection to this, because I think you get good value for money out of Radipole Park, which we just spent a lot of money on. But spend even more on it if you have your way. Bearing in mind that issue that we have with Radipole Park, I do think the current issue about those extra works will have any impact on it. What do you think, sir? In regard to the flooding down there, do you think that will impact any of the events that's listed in there?
No, because I don't think they're using the areas affected.
Yes, Dixon.
Does it meet the policy? Because it says, and the artist's fee, so are we paying wages?
Let's have a look. Mark making them.
I think, may I?
Yeah, councillor Northern coming.
If it's an external artist, then you might argue that's fine, in the same way that if you're getting an external coder to do your coding, that might be fine.
Yes.
But if it's part of one of the people funding their if it's one of the people who are on the committee, it's a little bit more difficult, and I'm nervous about that, but not overly, given the sum is quite small.
Yeah.
So I'm supportive of this because we need to get the footfall up into that area as part of our move people away from the seafront. There's more than just the seafront. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, I will say just for the record, I've been supporting this as well. I think it's a moderate amount of money for some events. So, is anybody against this that may wish to hold this up in the next round? No? Okay. We're down to 26. We're down to 26 grand. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Right, let's go to Home Start. Home Start's looking at about 3,000, isn't it? The only points I had on here, just to get us started, was that there's no volunteers and there wasn't any info from point 4 onwards, certainly in the applications I received. So being that it's an incomplete application, I wasn't comfortable with funding it.
I like the principle of what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The fact that they've done it before, but I agree the submission wasn't very good, and perhaps they can come back next year.
Yeah, and I've spoken to assure members, I've spoken to officers about ensuring when we get those applications that those applicants are given prompt feedback, so we can make sure that if a mistake is made or the wrong Word document got sent over version, and it comes back. So
I meant next financial year.
yes, of course. Okay, is anybody minded to push that forward into the next round, or are we happy to? Okay, take that off the list. I think Ian, you're probably doing the same behind me.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on, Deputy. Sorry, Vice Chair. Do you want to pick one?
Oh, we'll go for Wayne Museum first.
Weymouth Museum. Okay. So as a start for this, we do have interests from Councillor Harris and Councillor Weller. The only slight note I had on this was that other funding is being sourced, and I wondered if we grant this funding, if their other funding doesn't get secured, do we get it back? And how does that work within the mechanics? And I'll let the town clerk answer that one.
Traditionally, Chair, we would not release a grant until other funding has been confirmed. Agreed.
Councillor Dickinson.
We have traditionally supported this organisation, and a couple of years ago, the lady came in and explained what it was for. And it's, I think it costs £70,000 a year to store all Weymouth's antiquities, shall we say. So we've always supported it, and they've always managed to get the funding. So I'd like to support it again.
Thank you. Councillor Northern.
Yeah, I don't think this is matters of I support Weymouth Museum. I've helped with various things in the past, and my wife used to work as a volunteer there, so I'm a big fan of Weymouth Museum. In the actual application, it talks about running pop-up events, but running a pop-up museum, that's what the money is for, they're saying. But the only item they've itemised for costs is called rent. And my question is that rent for where they might host such a thing that's gonna happen? Or is that the rent they pay for their site on the Granby, which would be inappropriate? Question.
John?
Yes, councillor, can I just clarify, this is a question, or are you able to answer that?
I'm able to answer,
Wonderful.
or David could answer, but either David or I can answer.
Go for
It is a contribution towards the rent for the pop-up museum. They're separate items. It's really important that the museum keeps their profile going during this time of closure. We had a pop-up shop in the town previously. We ran out of funding to rent that, and it was the winter period, and everything was returned to the storage area. And the idea will be to replicate what we did last time: pop-up shop, venue, and a rolling stock of exhibiting the items that we have, so that people are reminded that we do have a museum collection and that we are still continuing with the museum.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
If that's all right, councillor Harris. In respect of the pop-up events, are the people who are running those events and taking the antiquities, as my friend called them, to those events, and is that all being done voluntarily?
Yes.
Because I think this goes back to our original point, and the spirit of the policy is that we're kind of in a position, and I take the point of the member about having rent as it is, but there's a lot more to this, and I'm thankful that we've got other members that can answer these questions, because this is not £5,000 for rent as such. This is to support a bigger voluntary organisation which haven't asked for anything in terms of professional fees or any such, living wages for those people manning those pop-ups, which is good value, really. I mean, we're getting free staff and management and everything else, but we're being asked to fund the project as an isolated event or a set of isolated events, correct?
Everything is run by volunteers, and if I can give you an example of one of the things being planned. We're going to celebrate King George III's birthday. Okay, on the seafront there, getting the kids in the school with that. And then having a pop-up museum in the town is really quite essential to say to people that come and sort of look at the birthday cards that the kids are going, okay, let's see what else there is about King George III in Weymouth.
Okay, but unless there's anybody else, I think we could probably propose this to the next round, unless there's anybody else that's.
You mentioned conditional on getting the other funds.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's fine.
yeah. Confirm that. Okay, let's go, I'll just go down the list now. It's the councillor Taylor, date or diet?
Date
Date.
for change.
Yeah, thank you. Would you like to give us some context to this, or are you happy with members with the information they've got?
I can give you some context. Date for Change has been running for a few years. It was originally Date, they've become a CIC over the last few years to help with grant funding. They were originally funded by a large grant from Skills and Learning, which is BCP Council. As you know, BCP is struggling, they've really pulled in on their grants, and they've pulled, I think, virtually all their Skills and Learning funding, which is why they're in the position that they're in. So I think they have probably about 4 or 5 years funding from Skills and Learning. They're an organisation that work outside of the the integrated service that Dorset Council run. So basically, if one of our residents is experiencing domestic abuse, if the police are involved, social services, etc., they'll get a referral into the statutory services that we run. However, not everybody is within the statutory services. So just as an example, I could be experiencing domestic abuse. If I choose not to go to the police, which the majority of people don't, there is no support out there for me. But the likes of Date run courses to help people in that position. If I've got, say, historical domestic abuse that I've never really come to terms with and it's affecting my life and how I'm living, there is nowhere to go to get any help. Date get referrals from all over the place. Interestingly, Dorset Council refer into them from adult services. Even Harrigan, who are the statutory service that we run, they refer into them when they can't help people. And they've even had referrals in from the courts. They're just a quick thing on what they are. They run 2 courses, whether 2 or 3 courses, depending. There's the Freedom Programme, which is to help residents, clients understand what domestic abuse is. Domestic abuse is incredibly complicated. And a lot of people who are experiencing domestic abuse think it's absolutely normal. The amount of people I've spoken to who think it's normal for, just as an example, if I go out of the house, my circumstances at home are different now, but when I used to go out of the house, I felt under no obligation to tell my husband where I was going. There are situations where one person will leave the house and they have to inform the other person exactly where they are, have to produce receipts with times on. People are tracked in that way, and some people think those sort of relationships are absolutely normal. Until you have something like Freedom Programme, which is a group session, it actually, you find that there's other people around in the same boat as you, and you're all going, you know, this isn't normal. I'm a human being. I should have rights. I should be able to stand up and do whatever I want. So the Freedom Programme is getting people to understand the type of abuse. The Recovery Toolkit follows on from that. And that's about empowering people. You have to be very careful with that because it is a very powerful tool. So usually it's very unusual to offer a Recovery Toolkit to somebody who's still in a relationship, because this is all about choice, and some people choose to stay within the relationship. So that's just a rough outline on what they do. They're virtually out of funding. But even things like their insurance, I've got a list of what they needed because I've been working quite closely with them. And interestingly, the BBC have picked up on this. I've been doing press releases. Dear Dorset Council, because it comes under my portfolio, I've been doing BBC press releases today on it. So it has got picked up quite widely. Dorset Council can't fund it because they fund the integrated service. And in answer to the other question, their course is in Dorchester. It's an understanding of domestic abuse. If somebody is experiencing domestic abuse and the courses say run in this building, people know they're running this building. People talk, this is a small place. So if I was experiencing domestic abuse, I would not want to come into this building for the course. I would want to go to Dorchester, I'd want to go to Hull. I may want to do it online if it was safe for me to do online. So that is basically what they do. I've got the figures of what they've supported in the last year, their referrals somewhere. I think I've got to lost that now. I haven't got it full stick. But they have, their courses are always oversubscribed. So there you go. Any questions?
Councillor Dickens.
It's the same question really. Does this meet the policy? I mean, because if it's Dorchester, we only fund things in Weymouth. And also, it says that they're gonna pay facilitators £3,500 in wages.
If I can answer that, I've just
Yeah.
answered the fact that Dorchester, it will be Weymouth people going to Dorchester to do the course.
Well, what does the
Because-
policy say?
Well, it's still Weymouth residents, you know, and you know, normally you wouldn't go to a course that's within your area. It's
Three and a
the
half.
same as the way refuges
Mm.
work. You don't normally get your local people in your local refuge.
Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, wouldn't this be something the Dorset Town Council should be looking at? I couldn't see any commitment from them within the paper.
Right, Dorchester Town Council, it doesn't come within the remit of their grant funding. But the likes of their car boot fund have regularly supported it.
And can they receive funding from the Police and Crime Commission? You ought to give
I've been talking to Dave Sidwick about it. Dave Sidwick's considering it at the moment. He's asked for a bit more work to be done. But he's got a grant funding programme that has just started that they may be eligible, and he's asking for more information.
Councillor Norman.
You've already given me the answer, but I'm hoping you might give me a different one. This service isn't just for Weymouth residents, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And therefore, I think we should only partially fund this. But that goes back to your saying we're not allowed to do that, but I thought we could if it was prorated to the residents.
I think we have got the pro rata because they're asking for 5,000,
And what are we offering?
3,900,
Okay,
and that represents.
okay. I'm disappointed that Dorset Council can't find a way to fund it because this sounds like poor social services stuff to me.
I think, is this being recorded? I think longer term we
Are we
will be
being
looking
recorded?
at it.
It's not being external.
Someone bleep that out.
Yeah, when we start looking at the communities for all part of what we do and bring the council and the community side stuff, we've got to start helping organisations like this and the voluntary sector wider, because we will be relying so much on the voluntary sector.
Councillor O'Leary.
What worries me is if this wasn't such, if domestic abuse wasn't the subject and it was being held in Dorchester, then I don't think we would be considering it. I think where it is domestic abuse is the only reason we are considering it. And I understand the reason why it's held in Dorchester completely. But obviously our policy says it has to be in the Weymouth Town Council area. Dorchester won't fund it because it doesn't meet their criteria. Technically doesn't meet our criteria, but if we or DC or BC, I've been seeing it on alphabet and stuff. But I think I would rather not give it today. But I think what we should look at is if we would approve it in the future, despite the fact that it's technically out of our policy, then I think we should try and approach Dorchester and say, look, we're willing to fund it despite being out of our policy. Will you meet us somewhat halfway? Because technically, as Councillor Dickens said, I can't see how this isn't out of policy is a rigid understanding, but I understand that, so it does put us in a tricky position.
Councillor Bell.
Doesn't the policy say, where am I? Grants will only be made to community and voluntary organisations for the benefit of the community covered by Weymouth Town Council and then contribute positively to the Weymouth area. I don't think it says about the location of the delivery of that positive impact.
But for clarity, on the previous version of the policy, it explicitly stated the boundary, and we took that out in place of community.
Yeah. So then this would be that.
Yeah. So
Okay, so
I'm
there's a few,
going forward.
yes, there's a
Because of
few,
the value that it.
yeah, there's a few
Could
different
it
ones.
just confirm?
Yeah.
That that's wages, does the policy say we pay wages?
I think again, we're into that area of
What does the policy say?
one-off projectness. Is it, are we funding for a one-off project, or is this something, and I take your point, is if this is something that is just ongoing and is, I don't want to say practiced, but is routinely delivered, then our policy would not support that, I believe, because this would be paying wages of people who have done it before. Councillor Harris.
I think if somebody were wanting to put in, say, 6 townhouses for a project that would support youngsters learning how to pick up eggs or whatever. It's a very simple thing. But if we were wanting that, those houses to be built, we'd have to pay somebody to get them built. That would be perfectly acceptable. As long as they weren't actually a regular receiver of income from that project.
I'm just, if you make a policy, you should stick to it.
Yeah, but
We've
that's.
broken the policy already on one application. We're now breaking the policy again on the second application.
Well,
So what is the point in having the policy? I would much rather each grant is,
I take your point,
Yeah.
councillor Dickinson, thank
Because
you.
that's what you wanted to change, wasn't it? Because you wanted it
was.
done by the policy.
Yes, that's right, and voluntary was where I was driven by on that, you're quite right. I think there's some differing opinions here, so let's just go to an informal vote. Okay, if you are in support of Dave going through to the next round, please raise your hand.
Am I allowed to vote?
There you go.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, it's through. Okay, so I think we're over budget now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there will be an argument to be had.
Yeah.
Let's go to, Valise.
Black back.
I think that's a Valise Noir Storytelling Theatre, just to get it started again. We will not fund unless, other funding has been secured. I was curious on the application, it noted a voluntary organisation, but then it had £2,000 per performance, which I didn't quite set up and didn't quite line up with me on that one. I wasn't sure what that was for, but if anybody's got any other information or thoughts on that, Councillor O'Leary.
I'm just a bit concerned that it's one of a number of similar-ish applications, and I didn't feel that. Not being funny, I've never heard of it before this come in, so therefore, I don't mean to be rude to them, I'm not sure the community benefit from it. Warrants the spending of £2,000, considering they're already over budget, and I think there's other ones more reserving, so I'm not in favour of moving forward.
Councillor Nickinson.
I was going to say almost the same. I think there's more worthy causes to look at that one.
Any other points, members?
Along with that.
Go on, Councillor Northern, keep the streak alive.
Thank you. It's its dependence on the National Lottery, and we're sort of I'm sure the National Lottery application says you must get an element of your own funding in place. It seems strange to be coming to us, this element of funding, when they could have gone to many other places. So I won't support it.
Okay. Is there any others that are in, so such dire support that we insert to the next round, or I get a sense that it's not there? Okay, we'll move on. And then I think we've got findings, yes, St Nick's, right, we're getting there, guys. We will be coming back to it all.
As board member, could I start?
You may.
Thank you. I hadn't realised that it was run by a CIC, but thinking about it is quite not too much of a shock. I've been to a number of their musical events and such like, and they do quite well. It has got a relatively limited community, but nevertheless, it's one of the few community actions that actually takes place in my ward. So on that basis, let's go for it from my point of view. It's not a lot of money and.
Councillor Nolan, do you want to just give it a quick overview as yours, so
well, I can only talk about the events I've been to. I've been to one of the nautical singing groups, I can't remember what it was called. But let's call it, that was quite fun. I've been to a sort of heritage a tribute band type night. And I confess that it also serves wine and beer, which is a bit unusual for a church.
I think also, members, I think this is also about not just the St Nick's organisation and their events. As the application states, this will be a lighting rig available to the community, and I wonder if Claudia might just confirm that.
Yes, it's most definitely for the community. Dorchester has a very similar system in that art centre, so it could be available to.
That's what I should have said, you're not paying for the wine and beer, you're paying for the lighting rig.
And we will be maintaining it and keeping it in fit condition for the community.
Okay, so that's good to know. So this will be something that will be given to an organisation that will then share it with anyone who would like to use it.
Only on Sundays between the hours of 1 and 2.
Noted. Okay, has anybody else got any thoughts on this one? I mean, it's a small part of money. I know we're over budget already, but it's.
Yeah, I'd like to support this
Yeah.
as well.
Okay. Okay, let's take that through and we have our list. Good gracious. Right,
21.3.
what are we over by? So we got one left over.
Dreams and night.
No, that fell already. Okay, so 15,474 is what we've got. So we've got to claw back 3,891.97, so just under £4,000. I can use this. Yes, we do have discretion. Do you want to elaborate on that, Town Clerk?
We have got budget support contingency, which is below the materiality level that we need to take it to the council, so it shows how much it's spent in use it. It is a get out of jail card, members may not agree with that, and they may.
Okay.
You just pull down the screen for the full document.
On that note, I wonder, let's talk about as we go into a new financial year, the CEE grant pot has not been spent nearly enough, has it?
So that has another 6,000.
Yeah, okay, so much, that's 6,000. So we've got some house money.
Yeah.
I would suggest to dig out that just under £4,000 and support all of these applications.
All of the ones that go through round one.
All the ones.
For clarity.
All the, yes, for clarity, all the
Been
ones
a
that
while.
got through round one.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll just allow members who want to speak, does anybody want to speak on that as proposed? Okay, could you, I can just check with the deputy clerk, are we okay to vote on that as a block, as a block and as a recommendation?
So what would you say, what's the recommendation? You said we approved the budget for round one as indicated on the screen.
As indicated on the screen, yes. And seek to fund the additional £3,891.97 over my shoulder from
Budget contingency.
budget contingency.
From the CE grant.
Well, not necessarily.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to come from that. Well, let's keep it open.
No, it's not.
How does that sound? Well,
Grants,
Louis, look what should be, Louis, round one, you call the wire.
Almost like a laptop there.
finance,
The L.
the budget support.
you have the wording on the board, right? Okay.
Okay, we did that.
Supported. Yep. And then overspent financial budget support contingency. So is that number 2, Chair?
Yeah.
Councillor Lord.
Could we add a point 3, which is the dry dock is referred to the CE.
We've already.
It's already noted.
Already noticed that,
Okay,
yes.
fine,
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, are we okay with that? Okay, raise your hands in support of the recommendation, please.
That is 9, I believe.
Those against? And any abstentions? We did it.
Yes.
Well done.
Well done. And I will just note to members that the grant policy is a working document as such. I know it's not for official purposes, but myself and the Deputy Town Clerk do intend to meet and review the process of the last two meetings where we've had to discuss this, and we do observe the amount of time that's spent on this, and we do need to still get it more efficient, get it slimmed down. And I think there's work from members and officers, importantly, make sure that we're getting good, solid applications, so we don't have to perhaps ask all of these questions and have missing information, etc. And we can have everything in front of us ready to go when we get to the meeting with a brief overview, okay?
Yeah, I apologise for submitting later questions. If I'd realised the process, I might have done it last week.
Oh, I believe that.
Might have.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. Okay, so we are going to grant policy, but I understand, I don't want to take any of this lady's more time. If you would, we're gonna just take a little, if as one and Claudia, you're welcome to leave.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, yours.
And I apologise, madam, what's your name?
Barbara Cohen,
Is it okay to call you Barbara?
you call me what you like.
Yeah.
As long as it's not rude.
She didn't say that.
So we're going back to
Okay.
item 6 now.
Yeah. Okay, Barbara, would you like to just come into, now Barbara, I'm mindful that we've been here a long time, I don't want to take any oxygen out of the room, and I think you're pushing against an open door here, certainly for myself, but just give us what you're doing, and don't take all night about it, but we will want to hear you.
The reason I got involved is that I went to, my granddaughters come down from the Midlands each year. And we've watched the Punch and Judy show each year, and it's just really great, and it's changed with the times. It's not really sexist like it used to be with Judy being beaten up and things. And I know it's been really hard for Mark Poulton to keep going. So I got a petition together last year, and I didn't start doing it till August, so I didn't get lots of signatures. And of course, I was told I did it wrong because I didn't get everyone to put their actual address. They just put their postcode. I wanted to speak up for Mark Poulton, and today, which unfortunately it was not long before I came out, because I've been in touch with him, he sent me a copy of the letter that he sent to the town clerk. And I don't know if people have seen that letter.
So the contents of that letter in the private session, the report that I've written and presenting is basically in response to that letter.
Yeah.
So about storage, about support of X, Y, and Z.
Right, because he sent me a copy of the letter, and it's like, I mean, the Punch and Judy has been going on Weymouth Beach since 1870. It's really, there used to be special rules really for Punch and Judy, the donkeys on the beach, and the sand sculpture. But now they're all treated, as far as I can see, well, I don't know about the others, but his is treated as a business. So he takes donations, which he charges a couple of pounds each for the shows. And quite a lot of people don't give money because they think that he's being supported by the council. And I think, well, since it is the year of culture for Weymouth, the Punch and Judy show is really important. I think there's only 3 left in the country.
Correct.
And
One in
it's,
Weymouth and then one in Wales as well.
yeah. And I mean, he sent me, with this thing he sent today, he sent me what he's doing at the moment with like restoring all these old puppets and making clothes for them. And, it's quite a lot of work involved. And he doesn't get, as far as I can see, he doesn't get much support at all from the council. And it is important.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like traditional Punch and Judy where Judy's getting thrown down the stairs and things, but he is If you go to it, it's very funny and it's suitable for adults as well. It's not just children, and we all have great fun. And I did think of going around and collecting money for him, but I'm quite involved with lots of other things in Weymouth.
I can't
But I
believe that,
wanted
Barbara.
to support him.
That's wonderful.
And I want you to think really well about this, because Punch and Judy is used in a lot of advertising for Weymouth. And I think it's very unfair to not support him in some way financially if you want it to continue. And I think he's already made some arrangements this summer to do other work where he can get paid properly. So I think if we want to keep it, Punch and Judy, which I think is very important, I think it's very important to think seriously about some kind of support for him. That's
Thank
all I
you,
really wanted
Barbara.
to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, thank you.
And
Don't
if
think,
everyone could look at what he wrote, it would be useful.
yes,
Thank you.
lovely, thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, Barbara.
Well, are you gonna
Except for the
talk about
confidential,
it?
except for the confidential session.
Except for
Oh,
Punch
it's
and Judy.
confidential.
Yeah, because it's confidential, you will be, in your words, thrown out.
Right, so I'm being thrown out now.
So, because we won't go to confidential session until item 12, but we're on item 8 at the moment, but unless you have got a burning ambition to know about the grants policy, the
No,
beach
I've heard
operation or the
enough,
bus
but
kiosk.
it has been really interesting, because last time I came, I didn't have my hearing aids in. I just said-
That was very wise.
And it was the most boring thing, but actually it has
Really
been interesting this evening.
Oh, you're welcome.
So thank you.
We seem to go.
I will
Yeah.
go.
Thank you, Barbara, really appreciate that. Okay, members, let's get back to the docket and get on to point 8. Rather, agenda item 8, which is the grant policy and year-end review. As I mentioned, it never ends being reviewed. Deputy Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. I just put this on the agenda just because I felt that there was just a couple of clarifications which we would be beneficial to the wording within the grants policy. The first one is up on the screen now, where it says the town council only provide funding to assist organisations that are not directly based in the area of pro-rata for Weymouth residents using that service. That seems to suggest that if you are based in Weymouth, that you get the full amount. If you're outside of Weymouth, you wouldn't, and it could be two identical projects. There was that differential there, and I just would ask members whether they could just suggest that the alternative wording, if they felt that that was the same interpretation. And the second area, which I just wanted to highlight, is it states within the policy that applications would be sent to members 2 weeks before the meeting. That is correct. There's probably some confusion out actually is that whether that meant that that was actually the deadline. And I'm just proposing that there's a more transparent timetable, which the closing date is 4 weeks before the date of the meeting, which we sort of discussed at the meeting in, I think it was September, we had this on the timetable, but it wasn't officially agreed. And then that would have just allowed 2 weeks for the due diligence checks to take place. And myself and the chair for tonight have discussed ways of where we could put an extra gateway, which we could use members and officers to maybe tease out some of the issues which were discussed tonight, so that there wouldn't be such a discussion at the meeting. So I'm just asking for clarification on that wording and an agreement if members would agree and support the timetable.
Thank you, Deputy Town Clerk. Just for example, on that first part, is that if we had an organisation that was running a basketball club in Weymouth and they were based in Chickerell, and then we had a basketball club that was based for Weymouth Basketball Club and based in Weymouth, this policy would give precedence to the one that's based in Weymouth, regardless of who it serves, because they both serve Weymouth. So I think, yeah, so I think we're looking for clarity on this to just flush that out. Now, my suggestion as a starting gambit would be get rid of the last sentence. Town council only provide funding to assist organisations that are not directly based in the area pro rata from Weymouth residents using that. Take that last sentence out and you still get the spirit of what's being done.
Yeah.
Councillor Norman.
I support the amended recommendation. Well done. And the other one that's down there already. I looked at the agenda item and thought, oh, this would be interesting, finding out how successful our grant policy has been through the
No.
year. Because I thought it said grant policy review, and I was hoping to hear about the outcomes which have been achieved with the money that we had given to the community. And I'd still like to have that happen soon, please, because last year, or maybe it was the year before, we increased the amount from 2,000 to 5,000. That's a significant change, and the applications have changed, as you've seen. I still have concerns, as I've mentioned, about we shouldn't be funding people's self-employment. And that's the underlying concern. And I think we're in danger of creeping into that. So I'd like to understand, get that report, and then following that, potentially refine our policy wording. Because I think what we want to be, what I'd like to be achieving is things that benefit the community. That doesn't mean everybody, that means people, some people within the community. And rather than individuals who are running the activity. Thank you.
So as part of the, I think I'm writing something this chair, as part of the Grass Working Party, I think it was highlighting that the areas which you're discussing there about putting into the public domain actually what we're supporting, what those benefits are, so that the wider community can understand where the grant funding has gone to. So having a report in regards to what you were suggesting, I think was raised as part of those discussions. And it will be something which we can bring back to the committee.
Councillor Nicholson.
Can I just ask, when we give a grant, do we ask for a report? Is it, 2 reports? And this will then show how they've actually spent their money and how many people, because we're being told, well, so many people are going to come to this event and we're going to do this and that. Who, is it the officers that look at those and decide whether or not, that they fulfilled the grant application or not?
It is, so officers will undertake that due diligence to ensure that the funding is being used for the purpose that it was intended, in accordance with their grant applications. We do have end of grant returns, and it's those returns which we would use to feed into the report and provide us with the information. And we can always put those forms into the members' areas as well, so they can have sight of those.
It would be nice to actually see what happened. And presumably if somebody doesn't send the report in, they're reminded that they don't do it, then they don't get a second application.
We go further and get the funds back.
We would ask for the funding back.
Yeah. So that's part of the remit of getting the funding, is that you must report on it.
Yeah, good.
And I will say that was raised in the group, particularly around what we can celebrate as a town council of our successes, of what we can fund. I think it's really important that the public know that we're doing all these projects and we're able to fund them, you know, in partnership with community organisations. I think it's very important, but it is there. Councillor Harris.
I'm a little bit worried if we take away that last sentence.
Yeah.
In part of what it says, and that is we allocate funds pro rata for the Weymouth residents using that service. Whoever runs the service, I think that should still apply. If they're running the service and it's occupied by 80% of Chickerell residents, we should only be paying 20% of the cost, irrespective of where it's based. I totally agree with that. But it's the fact that it's the way it's, you know, if they've asked for a certain amount of money, it's the Weymouth residents that should be gaining from that money that's spent.
I think if you look at the full policy, there are
Councillor
2
Norman.
paragraphs. I think if you look at the full policy, there are 2 paragraphs, one which talks, because I agree with what David said, but I think there's a second paragraph that addresses that.
There is, and also we have it in our gift to understand the application and with an officer's recommendation, be able to fund appropriately. I've made the proposal of taking out that sentence. Do I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor O'Leary. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous.
Lovely job. Okay. Yes.
Can I just come back on what you just said? I've just had some of the grant from Dorset Council. This is just for consideration at some time, not for any changes now. And what they do is give you half the grant. And then you get the other half when you've filled in, when you've done the project and your feedback form has gone in. It encourages people to fill in fill in the form, and it saves us having to chase them all the time and say, you know, you haven't filled in your form, and they're sitting there saying, well, I've got money, so what? What are you gonna do? Exactly.
Okay, food for thought. And let's just, we've had that amendment passed, so then we'll go to the substantive. And I think we'll look to agree points 1 and 2 together. So could I have a proposal, please, for points 1 and 2? Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Dickinson, and can I have a show of hands, please? Lovely. Moving on to point 9, the beach operations building. Town clerk. Assistant town clerk, sorry, I apologise.
So Weymouth Life Surf Lifesaving Club have held a lease for beach operations building since November 22. However, their lease has now come to an end and they're currently holding over on this lease. Although the Surf Lifesaving Club wish to continue using the building, full transparency in line with the council's financial regulations, officers are recommending that the committee agree for the council to conduct a tender exercise, asking community groups to submit applications to use the space for a 3-year period.
Maybe we'd like to speak on this, Councillor Norton.
I'd like to suggest we move to a vote.
Lovely.
You're feeling all right?
Just before I take that, I'll just double check that there's anybody who wants to speak. Okay, we'll take the proposal from Councillor Norton, thank you. Any seconders, please? And Councillor Taylor. Do I have a show of hands, please? Lovely job, thank you, members. And move on to item 10, back again to the assistant town clerk. Buses, yes.
So following receiving plan permission in 2022, First Buses had a small information kiosk on the promenade behind bus stop K7 over the last 2022. We call this not quite often a gentleman out there giving out information, and it tends to be quite popular with residents and visitors. Over the last 3 years, the bus company have operated under a license for this site. So it's been proposed that a license is issued for 32 years, with the tenants being charged the fee as detailed in the appendix. The year 2 fee would be the 2025 fee plus RPI.
Thank you. I just have a question. That's right. Before we get to that.
Do I need to shut off the recording?
No. No, it won't,
No, not
it pertain to that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to check that we've investigated in respect of the fees we're charging. We compared that to other similar resorts, and this is considered within the sphere of, you know.
We haven't compared to other resorts, but the size that the pitch size area we do size.
Yeah.
So for example, it's a similar fee to what we charge the land train guy who has a land train stop opposite Marks and Spencer's. So they get charged a similar fee because of the size of the pitch.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, sorry,
Are
Councillor.
they happy with just the 2 year?
Yes.
Councillor Nicholson, you were happy to propose?
Yes.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Dickinson. I have a show of hands, please. Lovely. And then you'll note, members, item 11, information items, which we do not go into discussion about. So that's your note.
So, on the, it's really important we get the nursery relocation. Is that all on track? Because it's going, it's been going, it should be coming up where it's.
There's a lot of work going on in the background, so you will report those papers when they're ready.
Yeah, because it's important we get that done, otherwise we could get stung with a bill.
Aren't we having a priority work programme?
Yeah, in May.
Yeah, May, yeah.
Thank you, members. Okay, so we will go to item 12, which is exclusion of the public and press. Could I have a proposer for that? Thank you, Councillor O'Leary, and seconder, Councillor Harris. Could I have a show of hands? Yes. Lovely, thank you.
The live stream's not on, but can we keep recording? It's something we agreed with the meeting that we can still record in in the private session.
Okay,
so this
isn't gonna be uploaded anywhere
Or
following,
we
we're gonna
can
cut
stop,
it.
or we can stop it and then we start re-recording it, it's just so that we've got accuracy of minutes and things for,
So stop it now and then?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got two, so we'll have two saved files.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.